から少し先の未来、大魔の日と呼ばれる日が訪れる。その大魔の日、お前は大魔Zi-Oとなり、それ以降お前以外のライダーは歴史から姿を消す。
Doesn't amount to anything!
Episode 17 starts the Future Rider arc, where in the next string of episodes, Sogo has dream predictions of riders from the future. So there's Kamen Riders, Shinobi, Quiz, and Kikai. Fun fact, the actors for them are all Sentai alumni. Like, Shinobi is Star Ninja from Ninja, Quiz is Red Buster from Go Busters, and Kikai is Reboot Kikaider and he's also Zamigo from Lupin Ranger versus Pata Ranger. Looking back on that, that's actually quite nice that each actor's character is related to a past work of theirs. So now, let's take a moment to talk about their suits. I like Shinobi's. Everyone else's I'm not a big fan of. Like, Kikai just looks... I don't know, I get kind of a cheap feeling from Kikai. But then again, robot. And Quiz's just doesn't do it for me. But Shinobi's is my absolute favorites. 1, purple is a nice color. And 2, the shuriken motif on him with the scarf and everything. All of that is straight up lit. And for all of them, they apparently all get gray Ziku drivers that they just slap their collectible, I guess, on it. To which, once again, my favorites is probably... Actually, I might have 2 favorites. Okay, now I think about it. Well, 2 favorites. Kikai's and Shinobi's. Probably just about that. But anywho, out of all these 3, Shinobi's suit is my favorite. And so, another thing along with the Future Rider arc is Oma Day. Oma Day is apparently the day when Zi-O comes into full power and becomes Oma Zi-O. It's talked about excessively, and anytime anyone says it's coming, they're always wrong and off due to a change of events. As I mentioned before in the intro, Oma Day does not matter to the story. Especially since Sogo doesn't have all of the ride watches yet, so... Now, since the last episode, a new timeline has been coming about, where not only is it where these future riders are coming from, but also an alternate timeline Wozs, who is an honest bastard. And I kind of like that about him. Like, I can't explain it as to why. Maybe because, while regular Wozs is loyal to Oma Zi-O, he has his times of being a shady bastard, where this alternate Wozs is just a bastard, and he doesn't bother to hide it. Like, when he first meets Wool, he tries to get information off of him, but Wool isn't cooperating, so he writes in his death note to kill Wool in a hit and run. If I were him, I wouldn't bother using anything else. Well, just that. And he is our tertiary writer, Kamen Rider Wozs. So his look... It's pretty futuristic, but... I don't know. To me, it's not as good as the first suit, Zi-O's. Like, green and black and silver is nice together, but I don't know. It's not like there's anything ugly about the suit. It's a personal thing. It's just not my favorite is all. Alternate Wozs, or should I say White Wozs? That's literally what they say to differentiate the two. Regular Wozs is Black Wozs, and alternate Wozs is White Wozs.
No, man. Shit, no, man. I believe you get your ass kicked saying something like that, man.
White Wozs comes from a different timeline where Gates is a savior that beats Zi-O. So now Gates has his own Wozs. Hey Jacob, how do you feel about that?
Because why not? These are things that he did. Why not?
Now, this is where the show mixes time travel and multiverse theory. Because the future writers are from a completely different timeline, we can't go to the future to beat the another writer versions of them because it's from a completely different timeline, access, shit.
Big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
And if we can't go into the future, that means we can't get their ride watches. And if we can't get their ride watches, then we can't beat them. Which White Wozs can just ride up and poof, now he has it. And he never does that again, despite that he can do that. Now, about Kamen Rider Woz's forms. Featuring Shinobi is probably the most decent. Everything else is a hard pass. Kikai just no, and Quiz, nah, just, and I'm not saying that I like the Shinobi form out of them, but they don't, nah, it just makes me rather prefer the base form. And apparently these powers give access to Gates Revive, which we'll talk more about in a bit in between the Future Rider arc. And so, episodes 21 through 22 are the Ryuki tribute. Shinji comes back, but the another rider is of Kamen Rider Ryuga. I'll give them credit that they were clever with this one. Since Ryuga's from the mirror world, going back in time won't do anything. And since he technically is a Ryuki rider, the events of Ryuki have been erased. So even if they were to go back in time, they can't travel through dimensions. So, yeah. And to counter it, Wozz creates a new ride watch for Sogo. Evidently, it's a two-piece ride watch. Sogo has one half, and his Mirror World double has the other. Did Wozz give that to him? If so, why would he give that to him? If he desperately wants Sogo to be Zi-O so bad, then why not give him the completed watch? I don't know how the show wanted to interpret it, but it's just random when Mirror World Sogo just pulls the other hand out of his coat pocket. But anywho, let's talk about Zi-O's first mid-season form, Zi-O 2. I like the suit. Everything going down, I really like it. The helmet, it's a little hard to look at first, but in motion, it serves quite purpose because it does the coolest thing ever. But first, the suit itself, it all looks nice. And this form, it wrecks shit. It takes the established rules of this show and it says, fuck the rules. Because with going up against a clever another rider, this form was straight up designed to be broken. And it does the most awesome thing ever, where it can look into the future and learn its opponent's next move. That's where the helmet looks great in motion, and that ability is too damn unfair. Like, this was Zi-O 2 literally a year before Zi-O 2 came out, and it's awesome. And so, all thoughts together, this form looks nice, is super powerful. The one thing about it, though, that's silly is the new sword that he gets with his face on it. At this point, I think I've gotten used to it, but that's just straight ego stroking. Like, having a sword with your face on it, like, it looks like a straight toothpick. Then you get slapped the face on it, it's like, dude, that's straight ego stroking. Like, and while we're at it, can we also talk about the insert song for Zi-O 2, Toki no Oja? It is awesome. I don't talk a lot about insert songs, but this is the shit. It's so damn awesome. And it's freaking Sogo's actor, So Okuno, singing it. Dude, like, Zi-O 2's debut battle with this song playing and everything happening, it is one of the best fights I've ever seen in Kamen Rider, because it's Sogo just being broken and untouchable. And yo, and the song playing in the background, it just brings it all home and makes everything all the better. Ah, it's freaking awesome. Freaking Zi-O 2 rocks. And so, just a side note, at the end of this, they don't get the Ryuki Ride Watch. It's instead obtained in the Kamen Rider Ryuki Rider Time special, which I've already reviewed a while ago, so go check that out if you want to keep up with Zi-O through outside content. And so, after today's events, Tsukiyomi and Gates start fearing Sogo, thinking he will become Zi-O, which I must say sounds ridiculous, because with how they were doing against Ryuga earlier, it sounds like they would have preferred struggling. And so, episodes 23 and 24, I just want to talk about their Kamen Rider Kikai's episodes, which I just want to talk about for a moment, just because of something out there. To re-elaborate, two of these future riders came to Sogo in dreams before turning out to be real. How Sogo dreamt them up and all is never explained, at least not yet. But they keep saying it's because of the Zi-O powers. What does that even mean? Once again, it's not explained and will be much later. And while we're at it, Kikai is dated for 2121. Zi-O is said to go as far as 2068. Yeah, it's a different timeline, but in said timeline, Zi-O's reign doesn't last forever because the robot apocalypse steamrolls over it. I'm just saying, that far into the future is a bizarre choice and pretty random, all things considered. But by the end of episode 24, White Wozs creates the Gates Revive Ride Watch, which comes in the shape of an hourglass. And it was created from Shinobi, Quiz's, and Kikai's Ride Watches, so there's that for you. So, episode 25, a new another rider appears, and it's another Zi-O. His name is Hiryu, and he's been collecting and recreating another riders, even being able to transform into them himself. It turns out to know... my mind blanked out from a sentence. And now I lost my spot. Okay, here it is. He turns out to know Sogo from an accident that killed both of their parents. To learn more about Hiryu, Tsukiyomi goes to Junichiro, Sogo's uncle, who he lives with. I haven't mentioned the uncle up to now because he doesn't do too much. And they all live with him, except for right now, that is. When Sogo was 9, he and Hiryu were part of a bus crash that killed their parents. But the bigger question is, how did the accident happen? Hiryu blames Sogo for it because now, when Tsukiyomi went into the past, she was on the bus, and from what we see, she murdered somebody and then the bus crashed. You know how time travel is something you shouldn't screw around with? Because of how sensitive the fabric of time is, that millions of sci-fi media stress that altering it will have negative consequences? Well, fuck that, because frankly, who gives a shit? And jumping ahead to episode 26, blah blah blah, Gates revive. Okay, that's not true. Gates does follow up with Tsukiyomi in the past and learned too late that she was in the crash. And then Gates revive. There is a resolution, but before that, you're left bewildered. Everything looks disjointed, as if you're picking someone to blame just to have someone to blame. And that's what's going on here. But let's now talk about Gates revive. The Otto, the blue form, seem like Typhoon. Credit where credit's due. I do like that. And once again, his motif is looking like an hourglass, which I quite like. But yeah, the blue form where he gets super speed and a claw weapon, that's cool. The Goretsu form, it's bulky. It looks like a bulky. You want to know something interesting too? Gates' visor and insect motif is that of a butterfly, and just having all that bulk on the chest in this form, he looks like a butterfly. He looks like a butterfly that hasn't fully broke out of his cocoon yet. But that weapon that he gets is cool because it's a chainsaw, a melee combat chainsaw, which can also become like a triclaw type of weapon. But the point of Gates revive is that with the Goretsu form, he's all strength and defense, and with the Typhoon form, he's all speed. And this is a form that can actually get one over Zi-O 2, because Zi-O 2 may be able to look into the future and see his next move, but Gates revive could also be fast enough to change his mind or do something else. So there's a matter of looking into the future and predicting your opponents, and then your opponents just being one step ahead just because they're faster. To which, that's interesting there. Once again, reminds me of what we're going to get next year with Zi-O 2. Like, Arc can predict his opponents, but Zi-O 2 can outpredict the Arc. So yeah. Anywho, so now, episode 27. As Gates and Sogo fight, Wozs breaks it up. When Gates runs into Wozs again, he learns that the more he uses the Revive Ride Watch, the more it'll kill him, as he bleeds from parts of his body. And literally after these couple of episodes, that's never going to be an issue again. Aside from that, here is the full context. When Tsukiyomi was on the bus, it was to see how it crashed. Tsukasa's there too because what really happened was Schwartz caused the accident. That day, Schwartz was scouting for candidates to be king by putting them in a trial of who would survive a bus crash.
You magnificent bastard, I read your book!
Tsukiyomi shoots at him to stop, but the laser gets reflected and hits Hiryu's seat, knocking him out. The bus crashes, and Tsukasa and Tsukiyomi manage to escape before the impact. The second part of the test is Schwartz taking the kids to the future and see how they'll do in the middle of an attack. Now, if anyone remembers my review or has seen Zi-O's summer movie Over Quarzer, then you know, ordinary people don't have natural superpowers. In Over Quarzer, it was retconned that the leader of the Quarzers was the reason behind Sogo passing Schwartz's trials, and did it to keep Schwartz off his trail. The movie, of course, is non-canon due to 01's cameo, but do you get the idea? Seeing this movie after watching the episode, especially for me rewatching it, it's bizarre why something non-canon makes more sense than something that's actually canon. This retcon makes Schwartz look like an idiot to think normal people have superpowers. Needless to say, while I don't like Overquarzer, I'd rather those villains be in charge than the actual show villains. So, after Sogo passes the test, Schwartz erases his memory of him and bestows him with his hidden Zi-O powers and takes him back to the present in 2009 because, yeah, all this happened when Sogo was 10. Back in the present, White Wozs is tricked into losing his powers, and then he writes them to return to him, but instead, Black Wozs obtains them. So now, regular Wozs is Kamen Rider Wozs.
Hell yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah, fucking right, alright.
Episode 28. Tsukuyomi is still in the past with Tsukasa, learning everything, and Tsukasa, saying, should the world be destroyed or not, I don't care about this part. Moving on. Sogo and Gates meet up again, and another Zi-O attacks Sogo, but this time Gates stops him, and he even admits that he and Sogo are friends. They battle another Zi-O together, and the battle is awesome. The two of them annihilate another riders left and right, burning through form changes up until they beat another Zi-O. This is one of the best moments from this show specifically because of how much shit is wrecked and from the main and secondary rider alone. And it's fucking awesome. Anywho, everyone goes home and everything turns out right.
こんなに嬉しいことはないよ。これでますます賑やかになるな。え？
ますます？
入居者ね、先約決まってんのよ。
よろしく。
Well, I'm all in for this crazy new sitcom, aren't you? Coming out this fall. And I still feel the exact same way.
この世界の